This presentation is about the representation in children's literature, and one thing to keep in mind when you are talking about this is that from the author's perspective, the representation of the characters needs to feel fair and authentic to the characters. So sometimes there's some controversy that if you are perhaps writing about a special needs child but you don't have any experience with special needs children, that you would not be giving a fair and accurate representation of that character. So usually if this topic is discussed, people try to find out the author's purpose and the author's background in relation to whatever the issue is. So the following books I'm going to recommend do have authors that have a personal connection to the issue that they are representing in their books. And usually they try to bring to the public attention or to the world of children the idea of opening their eyes a little bit toward others. So this book, Al Capone Does My Shirts, is a really interesting book. It's a great book to buy and read. It's a series. Its sequel is Al Capone Shines My Shoes. It's about the children who lived on the island of Alcatraz because their fathers worked in the prison, and so they became friends and they had a whole life on the island of Alcatraz. The thing that's interesting about this book in representation is that the author has a sibling with autism, and in this book one of the main characters has a sibling with autism, and it shows what happened to children and grown adults with autism in their older years. And back then, when in the setting of this story, they sent the daughter off to a school to get helped, and the family's reaction to a severe special needs disability child was really an interesting thing to talk about with kids. And I did think it represented that's the special needs of a severely autistic person quite well, and especially the way that siblings of autistic children gain compassion and empathy. So this was a great book that represents special needs, and its sequel as well. This book, Joey Pigza Swallowed the Key by Jack Gantos, also has a few sequels to it. This is the first of the series, and it's a really great book that represents what it's like to have attention deficit disorder. If you know someone or if you have that disability, he gets into the head of Joey Pigza, who has ADD, and really helps the reader understand what it's like to have a mind that's just constantly in motion. And some of the decision making and impulsive decisions that the main character makes are explained really well. So Jack Gantos provides some really good insight into ADD. A lot of teachers and principals have read this book as they discipline children in the elementary setting to find out, instead of saying, "What were you thinking?" this kind of gives some insight into it. Here's one of the sequels. This book needs to be mentioned as in the representation because it's the first picture book ever to show a black protagonist. And I think we mentioned this in the history of children's lit presentation, but here is I forget the name of the little main character, but it was the first one in 1962. That's the first time a black colored hero was portrayed. Here's a topic nowadays that's popular is gender. So this book is supposed to break some gender lines. Shannon Hale and her husband Dean Hale wrote this book a few years ago, The Princess in Black, about how a girl actually they told the story of how they wrote this. They have a daughter who was dressing up as a princess one day, and their dad said, "Let's go play spy," and she said, "Princesses cannot play spy. Princesses don't wear black." And so that gave them the idea to write this story about this princess who's very prim and proper, but sometimes she stuffs her dress in the closet and changes into the spy. There she is, prim and proper. Oops, not that one. And so she'll go out and do adventures with a local sheep herding boy, and there's monsters that she attacks and different things. So I like the colorful illustrations. It would be considered a middle grade book. A lot of second graders love it, or maybe even first graders try to read it on their own. It's an easy reader type book. We've already talked about this in one of my presentations, how it represents the stereotypical family, and lately it's been republished to represent the father role a little bit in a better light, being more involved. These kind of books are nonfiction, and they're really good to introduce children to how globally things look around the world. So it'll take a topic like bread or transportation, and then it would show pictures with limited text, but of how it happens in different countries. So this was the transportation book, and how sometimes people are pulled by ponies or by oxen or on the back of their mother's backs. Some people carry baskets over their shoulders or on their heads. Some people walk by foot or camels, or by I don't know what these are called, hand carts, where people pull you in a buggy, or bikes. I think I showed that one already. Here's the bread book, how different places make bread in their different countries. So those kind of books are interesting to represent beyond our own ethnocentric America's, the top country perspective. This is making me want some bread now. So some ideas to get us thinking about how to open up the eyes and the minds of children as they begin to think a little bit bigger and a little bit deeper into some of the issues that children's literature can provide.